Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to join us in our broadcast here for Fast Break here, or IE Sports Radio, your week for always sports. D-Lock, the NBA Finals has concluded. The Oklahoma City Thunder has won the championship. We went live last Sunday doing that show, a big time show for us. What are your thoughts on the remaining few minutes of the game before your Wi-Fi cut off?
I think the big thing is I see SGA start to take over time. He showed that he's the MVP of the league and the MVP of the playoffs. So, big congrats to OKC Thunder. That parade party was a lot. I'm pretty sure everybody had a lot of fun. Chet did specifically as I've seen. But big congrats to OKC after everybody they had going through. Kevin Durant, Russ, James Harden. SGA gets in that championship.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that, get our final thoughts on the finals, and dive into the NBA draft, talk about that as well. So lots to get into. LeBron opted in, NBA free agents kind of staying home. So a lot of deep dive into tonight's show. But this is we'll get on the other side of things, and this is Fast Break here live on Sports Radio. You'll reach for always sports. Catch you in just a second. And welcome to Fast Break here for IE Sports Radio. You're direct for always sports. Last week's show, I catch you in the playback, but if you watch on the X, we're on 3 different streams: X, YouTube, and Twitch mainly. On our stream last Sunday with the NBA Finals, and probably because we got stuck in the algorithm for all 3 hours of the game, we got probably our biggest audience ever of the show. On X alone, D-Lock, and what I've been told, about close to 1,000 viewers on the show.
Oh, yes.
So if you're watching the show, if you catch the playback on it, thank you very much. For myself, D-Lock, here at IE Sports Radio, thank you for making one of the better streams ever in the company's history. We greatly appreciate it. And we give our analysis of the game. So thank y'all very much for that. For the views and all that stuff. D-Lock, the NBA offseason is here. But before we get moving to the NBA draft, I know your feed kind of went out. I want to get your thoughts on the 2025 NBA Finals, your thoughts as a whole, and the Oklahoma City Thunder winning it all.
I think it first of all, like I said, big congrats to OKC for getting that championship. We talked about this a few years ago when we seen this team be very young and up and coming. They capitalized and did what they had to do this year. SGA leading the charge. So I think that it was well deserved. I mean, like I said, I know little thing happened with Halliburton, kind of had an impact, but the better team won. I think OKC was the best team in the NBA all year long. Only other team that kind of battled with them that we've seen was the Cleveland Cavaliers, for the most part. So OKC had a hell of a season. SGA showed that he was the MVP. That this run that he made alone does put him in the Hall of Fame talk already. The question is, can they continue to be competitive and bounce back next year? And with the same young team that they have. Chet Holmgren, who we've seen, we knew that was a steal in the draft. What he can do, you pair him with the guy that they had, that was a hell of a pickup. Then you go add somebody with championship caliber in them and history, and Alex Caruso, and you go get somebody like that. He knows what it takes to win. He brings that energy. So for me, I think it was well deserved, man. I think they definitely did everything they were supposed to. And having the SGA there, Jalen Williams, who came in, who played his part during the season. Lou Dort had a hell of a season as a defender. Kason Wallace played well when he needed to. This team really gelled as a team, overall. Even though SGA had a season that he had, other players stepped up when they needed. And they proved it. So big congrats to them. Again, I'm pretty sure the Clippers are kicking themselves, which this will be talked about forever with that trade. But also with all that draft capital that OKC had, what do they do? I mean, they could put some more youth there, but that team is so young. I guess to be, in my opinion, to be more competitive, maybe they trade some of them pieces away to get another star player added onto that roster. Because now it's about repeating and maybe making this a dynasty if possible. That's probably a little too soon to say that, but we go 2 years down the road, or next year and the year after, we could be talking about a totally different thing. So, but again, big congrats to him. Definitely deserve it.
My final thoughts and kind of watching the game and stuff like that. I think that third quarter where we watching it live and whatnot, when Jalen Williams got going, and they went like a 9-0 swing, hitting 3-pointers. And I said at halftime, like, it's not just the scoring Jalen Williams, it's just doing everything else, get everybody else involved, handling the ball, all that stuff. And once he got rolling, and they went a 9-point swing, and it kind of took that favor into OKC's favor. It was, I don't say all she wrote, but Halliburton going out, to have that kind of, neutralize that. And then the momentum got on their side, the hometown got into it, and they took advantage, got double digits, and they really didn't look back. And yeah, Indiana trying to make a comeback, but I think since that hole in the third quarter put them from the third quarter put them in, it was kind of hard for them to claw back in that fourth quarter to do anything special or surprise OKC at the end. So you see this young team, like you mentioned, they got some years to them. Next year, everybody will be back in the fold. So a chance to repeat is very heavily on the cards. And with the uncertainty with all the teams, maybe except for a couple in the NBA, there's a good chance of them repeating again.
Right.
Not a lock, but a good chance that if you put your top odds for next year, OKC will probably be in top of those odds in Vegas. You know it, I know it. Some of you heavily gamblers out there, y'all probably know that as well. So for me, the sky's the limit for this team, barring health. And like you mentioned about the picks and all that stuff, and we're diving the draft here momentarily. They almost kind of playing with house money in a sense. And I'm just curious how things gonna go in their way with all these draft picks and stuff like that. In my humble opinion. So for OKC to finally get the hump, Sam Presti been in the fold with this team since there's the very late Seattle days till now. For him to get his first ring after overseeing, one rebuild project, then to superstardom with KD and Russell Westbrook and James Harden, then to train James Harden, still got the superstar bill with KD and Russ until that went away. And then you tried to Paul George, Carmelo Anthony deal. And after that, another rebuild with HGA with a goal in mind. And then you see what we got today. Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, Cason Wallace, bringing in free agents like Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein into the fold. So, and getting Coach Mark Dable as well. A guy that kind of grinding out in their G League, a guy that took over. The first 2 years wasn't great, but then the third year, you kind of saw progress. And after that, the past couple seasons, back-to-back 60-plus wins. And there's the second youngest team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. The second youngest team in the league. So we're to see how things go. I think to me, this early on, they're my favorite to win the NBA championship again. Because we'll talk about it here later in the show, but like I don't know what the hell everybody else is going to do.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Like, I don't know. That's my thing. Like, damn,
What's next? Yeah.
what's next for everybody else? But I'll let you have the last word.
I mean, I definitely agree with you on that standpoint of, this team's going to come back as one of the favorites. And obviously, you have some teams that are going to come back and continue to get better. But all this team has to do really is stay healthy. They're not really missing that many pieces. Again, when you get into the rebuilding, you have somebody like SGA who, was a hell of a pickup. Then you'll get Chet, which we know what he was in college. Like, that's a dangerous combination along with Jalen Williams and the other guys who Dort, those guys. So to bring them back together, they're going to be a hard stop. And then these different conversations with what these teams are doing. He's making these moves we see. OKC don't really got to do nothing but just, celebrate and get healthy and prepare for next year. And right now, I think that's the best way I can go about it. Like you said, grabbing Hartenstein was a hell of a pickup. And you pairing him with Caruso, that's a good group that you're bringing in. Some good defense as well. So for me, I think this team is going to be hard, but obviously, I think Denver is still going to be Denver. The Lakers will figure out something, but they have a different situation of their own. So I think even the Spurs will be pretty good, but maybe they're a couple of years away. So maybe this team is set here. The biggest thing is they have to stay healthy. They stay healthy, I think they're going to be somebody to deal with. And also now they're going to be that team with a target on their back. I think we talked about it last year, the year before, that they were the good team that teams were looking out for. But now they got OKC is circled on their calendar of who they want to play. So I think, like I said, this team is going to be good. They got to continue being good, but they have to stay healthy.
And that's the main thing. Can they stay healthy to kind of reach their potential? And that's the main thing right there. So I think we got good faith in OKC to get to the finals again. We'll see. But one of those things that kind of will help the other teams, other 29 teams that kind of stop that is the NBA draft. D-Lock, the 2025 NBA draft emanating from Brooklyn, New York again this year. And by the way, they should take that stuff on the road. If the NFL can do it, y'all can do it too. Just saying. But it held from Brooklyn, New York. You had two telecasts, D-Lock. You had the ABC one with, I forgot to do who was hosting, but you had Stephen A. and Bob Myers on one. Two dudes who probably can't stand each other, just the way they're snapping at each other in that broadcast. Yeah. Then the other side of things, we got Malika Andrews, Andrea Carter, the country buckham himself, Kendrick Perkins, Jay Billis, and Shams Charania. So that was your crew for the NBA draft. Before we get to the picks real quick, D-Lock, what were your thoughts going into this draft on Wednesday night? Because it didn't get a lot of buzz compared to 2 years ago with Victor Wembanyama. And I thought it should have got more pub than this.
Right.
But, what were your thoughts leading up to the draft in your humble opinion?
Well, my first thought obviously was Cooper Flag, that being the number one person off the board. But also I wanted to know what was going to happen with the rest of the Duke players on that starting five. And I wanted to see where they were going to land. And just knowing how the season played out for them, what that team, that young core was. I want to know what was going to go on with them. And also I want to know what Brooklyn was going to do with all those picks. I mean, they had a hell of a lot of picks, so I kind of was curious to see how. You talk about a team that's been through a lot these past couple of years, man. They've been through a hell of a lot of different picks or players throughout these years. They've been rebuilding. We talked about Cam Thomas a lot. How come he should get the minutes that he's getting and that he deserves. So, but that was my first few things, man. I really wanted to know what was going to happen with that. And also, me being a diehard Gator fan, I want to know what was going to happen with Walter Clayton. I definitely wanted to see, where he could possibly land, and see if he can make an impact wherever he goes. So this draft was pretty interesting. Obviously, Cooper Flagg led it, but then seeing some of these picks, it kind of made sense on both ends.
I think for me, heading to this draft, I got the question right here. Like, why no heavy press for Cooper Flagg? You talking about the kid that's 18, 19 years old, went to Duke, one of the top players in the nation, got Duke to the Final Four. And I was thinking, like, damn, why not are we doing the heavy press for Cooper Flagg when we knew the 50 Wembanyama?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the thing that's kind of been hurting the league. And I don't know, Adam Silver got the right people to tell him this. You can't do all this press and stuff. And rightfully so, you did the press for 50 Wembanyama. I'm not faulting that. But you gotta continue urging the next set of kids in. I know last year it was kind of, different. It was kind of a weaker draft, but you still got to push those kids. And then here, Cooper Flagg, not the big race in it, but the first white American player to be drafted number one overall in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real about that. And go back to the old, Charles Barkley and the sneaker thing. Republicans buy sneakers too. These white Americans, they buy sports tickets, all that stuff. They don't want to get the money and the wealth, but that's no subject for another day. But they go to these games, all this stuff, and you figure, you like to see somebody like Cooper Flagg playing for your team, or just watching him casually. So I was kind of odd. I had to bring race into it, but I found it odd. As good and talented as Cooper Flagg is, why he get no heavy press like this?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. Like, you got kids 6'9", 6'10", could be I don't say face the league, but one face of the league. Why are we not putting a full court press on this? Why are we not, saying Cooper Flagg is the next big thing in the NBA? 2 years ago, it was Victor. Now we got Cooper Flagg. Yep. And then next year's class, I hate to get ahead of myself like this, but next year's class, again, maybe top heavy like this one was. Star power. With AJ Demista, I forgot the Boozer kid, but was it Cameron, I believe?
I believe so. Let me double check. One of the twins.
It's the one that's 6'9". Because one like 6'4" and the other one's 6'9". Don't know.
I think it's Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron. So you got Cameron. One of the kids, I forgot the kid's name, going to Kansas. Got him in the fold. I don't got his name in front of me right now, but you got pretty top heavy class next year. So they got to do better. And Silver got to get on these networks, say, hey, you got to pump the fool with these kids and stuff like that. And I think, that's what they've been lacking in the past several years. You're not promoting these guys like you should. But, but I think another thing that kind of factors into things is like, we'll talk about winners and losers later on. I'll get my full thoughts on that. But let's dive into it. Dallas Mavericks select Cooper Flagg, forward out of Duke, number one overall. Your thoughts on this pick as it happened? Was it no surprise for you?
After they got that number one pick, I think it was without question. That's like, you trade away your franchise player to get a franchise player, a younger franchise player. And you're pairing him with Anthony Davis. So I guess now people can revisit to see who actually won that trade between the Lakers and the Mavs. But I think that getting Cooper Flag does help this team a hell of a lot. I mean, I think this team was already talented enough with AD and Kyrie, P.J. Washington, the rest of these guys. But now you bring somebody else in who is your who's going to be the future of your franchise, and he's going to be thrown in the fold with some vets already who can lead the charge, both champs. And as we talked about with SGA, SGA is there with Alex Caruso, who comes in and helps with that winning mentality. KCP was part of 2 winning teams, championship teams. Drew Holiday, who just got traded, was part of 2 championship teams. These teams are getting players that have that winning mentality to help the rest of the team. Siakam was part of that with the Pacers, with Toronto, trying to help the Pacers get there. So now you look at Dallas, who has Kyrie, who's won a championship. You have AD, who's won a championship. Those are caliber players that have been to the NBA Finals and have won. Now what happens is they can take them. They can be on that same quest, but now teach the younger guy and Cooper Flag how to do that, how to operate, how to move. So then when it's time for them to leave, they got their next person in walking. So, excuse me, it's something that we see the great teams like the Spurs, the Los Angeles Lakers. We see them once their star is gone, they already have another one up and coming that can take over the reins of the franchise. So I think grabbing Cooper Flag was an obvious pick. It made sense. And he's around 2 guys that can help develop him to be that great player that he's going to be. Because both of these guys, I would say, were top 5 players in the league at one point, Kyrie and Anthony Davis. They had that caliber. So now you put him with them, but AD and Kyrie, now you got some guys that kind of help him and lead him to be that next great, that the potential show that he can be.
I think real quick for me, I think, Flag was I won't say obvious choice, but it just looked too good to pass up. And Nico better thank his lucky stars that they got this number 1 overall pick and kind of saved his job for the time being. But getting Flag, to plug into that front court, Kyrie being out to whenever, I think at least by the All-Star break, we'll see him back. But, with him opting out his contract, staying for another 3 years, that should help ease things with Flag. And I think, like you mentioned before, will help mentor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Davis should help in the short term. So, like a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, like Kyrie, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, should help in the short term for the next couple years, 2-3 years. And by the time he's 22, 23, hopefully we talk about one of the better young players in the NBA under 25. And now you're hitting the prime. Now you're trying to get things maneuvered to help him in his prime career. Hopefully, Derek Lively is staying healthy on the court to go along with him. Another Duke guy to go along with him. So I think, the playoffs with the group they have now is in sight. But your main goal, hopefully within a couple of years, 2-3 years, you're not. A couple of years with him. Now he's one of the best players under 25 in the league. And he can, ball. I'm not trying to say turn to Luka 2.0, but, just being, don't have to have the ball in his hand all the time. Just play smart basketball and learn and grow in the game. Hit the gym, all that type of stuff. Because we already know he can jump out the gym. But, getting the upper body right and all that stuff. Be smart about your body. I know Texas is very inviting about barbecue and stuff like that, but you probably can't dive into that too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the right pick, a great pick for them. I just think, I just hate how Nico and his blunder, and they got rewarded for this.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing that that will irk Dallas fans for eternity. As we saw in the draft party video, I saw like they were saying fire Nico during the draft. Now I think there's a time and place for that. Not there, but it's still holding strong about what happened with Luka and that trade this past season.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for them to kind of like move on from that, even with them getting Cooper Flag, because although he is that projected next great, he hasn't dribbled the ball in the NBA yet. So, as much as they do have that expectation, we've seen Luka do what Luka has done. Luka was on the front of NBA on the NBA game already, with a Dallas Mavericks jersey on. So they're gonna miss that as fans. But again, I think this kind of patches up a wound a little bit for them and getting Cooper Flag. And he can, like I said, he has the guys around him that should be able to lead him. These all-stars, these future Hall of Famers should be able to help lead him the way. And again, like I said, I think this is a pick that, like you said, it kind of fell in their lap. I'm pretty sure Nico probably was wiping the sweat off his forehead when they seen that he got that lottery pick. So now you can go ahead and use that to build and go from there. But I mean, I guess that's how it rolls. I mean, like I said, we've seen him with Dirk, and now we mess around and see Luka come out there and do what he did, and now all of a sudden they come back and hit on Cooper Flag. So now I think this is the perfect spot for him because, again, he's not expected to lead his team by himself just yet. He got guys around that can help him.
All right, sorry about that. I had to make a comment right there real quick to replying back to somebody. This is somebody just posted, man. Look at this. Hey man, hey, can I join your panel and explain why Michael Jordan fans are the worst sports fans of all time? I'm not gonna be boring, but you might get a lot of kicks after you in your live stream. Well, Mr. The Universe Galaxy, I appreciate your comment. I greatly do. That's maybe something we can talk about down the line. But right now, we kind of focus on the NBA draft right now. But thank you for tuning in with us. I'll keep it in mind. I'll keep it in mind. I think that's something, stand for certain players. And I got my Eric Kobe hoodie on, but stands for players. I think something that we can talk about down the line. Stand for players, they kind of go overboard at times of their love for their player. Kobe, Michael, LeBron. Who else could be in that discussion? Allen Iverson, Luka. Hell, we seeing how that goes. So I appreciate the gesture, but we got a lot of stuff to dig into tonight with the draft. So we got to zip by this. We got to talk about the Lakers sell. LeBron opted in. Malik Beasley shaving points, allegedly. Keep up with his FanDuel points, all that stuff. So a lot to talk about. So moving forward, the Spurs. I was kind of curious where they're going to go with this. But they took Dylan Harper, 2 overall from Rutgers. You mentioned about the Brooklyn Nets picks and stuff like that.
Right.
And we'll discuss here in the next couple picks what were trying to do. But I thought with all the picks, I thought they at least should try to get to number 2. Now, if the Spurs had the sights on Dylan Harper, then so be it. Nothing you can really do. But your thoughts on this draft pick, and does De'Aaron Fox stay in the long haul with the Spurs with this pick?
I mean, that's the first person that really came to my mind when I seen this pick. Let me look at. So De'Aaron Fox is 27. He's still a very young guard in this league. Now we do know how the Spurs are, how they like to play. They usually have, they did lead off of having the Hall of Famer and Tim Duncan and had the pieces around them. Obviously, having a great guy come off the bench a lot of times with that team, Ginobili being one of them. Tony Parker was out there doing his thing as well. So the way that the Spurs win their championships is how they don't have this that they have their one Hall of Famer and they have these multiple players who can come in and get them to double digits. To where we see other teams that are leaning on their starting five. So the Spurs seem like what it's looking like right now. They're probably building around having different players, everywhere. And the biggest thing for me is I think that when you do go grab Dylan Harper, now you got him, you got De'Aaron Fox. Wemby's going to be Wemby. He's definitely not going to be. I think he's going to actually be he's going to continue getting better up in this league. So when you have these guys, just like we talked about, the West is going to be very tough. OKC is going to be OKC. Let me pull up this depth chart really quick for the Spurs. So looking at it, right now you still got Castle, who had a hell of a season last year. Devin Vassell as well. Sochan, so you have a good group of guys, young core. And my thing is with that, now you have a team that when you bring in Dylan Harper, he's going to go in that guard rotation, which is what we're used to. I think you're going to rely a lot on Victor to have these great games, a hell of a season. But now you give him a lot of shooters, which is what they need. They got some defenders. So I think grabbing Dylan Harper doesn't impact too much De'Aaron Fox's weight, a lot, being how we know how the Spurs play. Now, obviously, Pop is retired. This is going to be a totally different team. But I think this is a huge bonus for them. They got a good group of guys, but also we can see this team pairing up a lot of these players in case of possible trade for a big star comes in the future.
I think for me, it's like when you talk, I'm looking at that. He still hasn't got an extension from the Spurs yet. I looked that up. Like I knew it to the table, but I'm looking right now. 2 days ago, De'Aaron Fox still hoping for an extension with the Spurs. So I look at that. I was like, if they can't agree on an extension, do you move off him during the trade deadline? And I think, with San Antonio, they always built their teams to the draft. Whereas, David Robinson, Sean Elliott, Tim Duncan, and, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and then other guys like, Kawhi Leonard, George Hill, all that type of stuff. And now, you've seen the past few years when they kind of been in rebuild mode, Victor Wembanyama, but Stephen Castle, Lonnie Walker, who didn't pan out, but, Jeremy Sohan, all these guys they trying to, push through and develop. It still really hasn't hit like it done years past. And now with Dylan Harper in the fold, his dad, former NBA player, Ron Harper. So you knew that point guard pedigree is already there. So, and the best thing, for young guys like to be on the court and have the ball in his hand like that. And if you're going to have Fox there, yeah, you can play on the court separate, at times, but Dylan Harper's a guy that need the ball in his hand.
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox is a guy that need the ball in his hand. Now, one guy's 27 and the other one's 18. You're talking about a decade difference right there. So, maybe they keep Fox around for the short term, but, after, after, a couple years or so, maybe looking at, letting Fox walk and hopefully Harper would show enough to carry the load with Victor for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the pick. It's just real curious where they go with it next. What
Especially
happens
they haven't.
next?
Yeah, that's true. Especially they haven't extended De'Aaron Fox yet.
I'm sorry. Well, and the dude replied, "Well, I guess you're not putting me on the won't be putting me on in the future. No problem. Take free time. Hey man. I didn't say it was a no. It's just like down the line, man. Come on now. You can't be coming in people's chat saying, "Hey, can you hop in real quick?" Nah, no, come on, dog. Can be doing that. All right, come on now. But anyway, let's move this forward. The Sixers, they drafted VJ Edgecombe, uh, combo guard out of Baylor with the third overall pick. I did my mock draft kind of hastily, but I thought Ace Bailey would go here.
Mm.
Your thoughts on this selection in your eyes? Because I thought Ace Bailey would go right here.
I mean, the biggest thing I have with the Sixers is I think they're doing everything for Embiid. And that's my thing with this team. I've said it multiple times. Obviously, the situation with Ben Simmons and moving forward. I think grabbing Edgecombe isn't a bad idea. You still got your pieces in Paul George, Maxey, your big three, and B. But a person that stepped up really good for them this past year was Quentin Grimes.
Mm-hmm.
He played very well. So where does that leave him when it comes to minutes? Jared McCain. We've seen Jared McCain start to step up and have a pretty decent season. Where does that lead him? Again, what it seems like if these teams are getting a lot of guys in rotation to where they're not really solely relying just on Tyrese Maxey to drop 30 or 40 a game, or Paul George, who's probably not. He's definitely not who he was years back. The expectation is a lot different. Also, Kelly Oubre. This team is very much loaded. So when you add in other pieces like this, the question is, what does it do for them moving forward? How does it affect this rotation? Do we see Edgecombe start at the two a lot? Do we see him move at the three and they possibly move Paul George down at the four? What happens with this rotation and how does it impact them? So for me, I think taking these chances on a lot of these players, it could also put some of these other players to different teams. Because if Edgecombe comes in and cooks, what happens with, like I said, Jerry McCain? What happens to Quentin Grimes? What happens to Kelly Oubre? What happens with these? So I'm not too mad at that pick, but I think the Sixers are just really – this team is very much based off of how Embiid season goes. We see it early in the season. This is one of the craziest seasons Embiid has ever had. I think coming off the Olympics, he's just – was feeling a lot different. He said he wasn't doing no back-to-back games and all the other crap that was going on. We seen it in the beginning of the season, not starting the season healthy, and he never recovered. So I think this is a great pick with the guy that they have because you put him in the room with Tyrese Maxey, Jared Butler, Jared McCain, and Paul Jordan, these guys. Hopefully it gets a little bit of attention off of Embiid, throughout these games. But at the end of the day, I think Embiid needs to have a hell of a season for things to get rolling. And also Paul George, because they did a lot of fighting to get him there. I think Edgecombe could make an impact, but I think it's going to be behind those big three.
I think real quick for me for this pick, the reason I put Ace Bailey here because it's like if they take Edgecombe, who's out seeing here more rumors about, them taking him, I was like, you got McCain. He should be back sometime by November, hopefully. No later than December. Okay. Maxey, Quentin Grimes, into the fold. So I was like, where can you put him and get him solid playing time for this Sixers team? And before we got on the air, I saw that Quentin Grimes is asking for at least like $30 million a year. So I'm not saying you can get $30 million a year, but when I seen stories like that, now you kind of like, okay. And with the tax aprons, all that stuff, everybody kind of like, talked about to death. Okay, if he wants $30 million a year, he's not gonna get that for us. And we got another kid coming in, we can develop. It'd be a lot cheaper. So for Edgecombe, I see. Well, I wait to see how it fits. Kind of we talking about like San Antonio. He needs the ball in his hand. Maxey needs the ball in his hand. McCain needs the ball in his hand. So how are you gonna, if you're Nick Nurse, how are you gonna, split up playing time, all this stuff, with everybody involved? Who's gonna play off ball? I know Maxey can play a little bit off ball, but as on this year, better in the ball in his hands.
Right.
So it's kind of curious to me how Daniels is going to go, with these young guards. Because if McCann's stayed healthy, he probably been rookie of the year. No bones about it.
Yeah.
So, a kid like that need the ball in his hand. And you got this other kid need the ball in his hand. How are you going to, balance that if you're Nick Nurse? That's just my biggest question right there. For the Sixers, like how can Nick Nurse handle that as well? So I think that's another team to kind of keep an eye on. And I thought maybe besides going guard, I thought they went big man. At least the kid from Duke, what's his name? Kaman Malakot. I thought at least maybe grab him a 3 because Embiid can't stay healthy at all. You need a big man down low.
Yeah.
And I know Drummond opted into his deal with the Sixers for $5 million, in which kind of look at it now, I wish he kind of declined and came back to the Lakers, but anyways. But I thought, the kid from Duke, Kanan, I thought he'd probably be a good fit for Philly just because they need a big man to develop for the future.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned about Embiid, I know they're saying he's working hard to get back ready for training camp, but that's not really a guarantee.
As we've seen, it isn't.
So I think for Philly, I think they just took the best player on their board and try to figure out things later on. Moving forward, D-Lock. Number 4, the Charlotte Hornets took Con Kneppel, forward out of Duke. This is when the stories start coming about the Nets and Wizards and all that stuff, and who trying to trade up and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
This is when that story's trying to trickle out. The Nets trying to move from 8 to 4, I believe. But the Hornets was getting cold feet about it because they want to call Kneppel. So they worry about Con Kneppel not being there at 8. Because after 4, you got the Jazz, who we'll talk about here in a second. Of course it took Ace Bailey, but it's the Jazz, so
yeah,
they couldn't took him. Then you got the Wizards there, and that's a preferred place for Ace Bailey, but Utah was kind of like, we don't know what Utah's gonna do. Then after that, you got the Pelicans, and then of course the Nets. But the Nets tried to trade up, but the Hornets got cold feet at the end, stuck to the guns, and took Con Kneppel, 4th overall. For me, D-Lock, we'll get more to Everett Hornet selection later on too. You needed this dude in the locker room. you kind of need to do like this in the locker room. Back on the court wise, shoot the ball, can handle it. Sneaky athleticism, if you really have watched them, ladies and gentlemen. And I think for that Hornets team, Brandon Miller, I love him, but hasn't been able to stay in the court like that.
True.
LaMelo Ball, solid player, hasn't been able to stay on the court like that. So I think this is a good pick to kind of, get some solid guys in there and whatnot, and just kind of change the direction and the culture of the franchise. Your thoughts on Connor Knippen going to Charlotte Hornets?
I think it's a hell of a pickup, in my opinion, to be honest with you. This is probably one of the better picks that I like, because I feel like the Charlotte's team could use a big. Obviously, now we know they traded Nurkic away. But I think, with LaMelo, who we know sometimes has injury issues, and Brandon Miller, this guy, Connor Knippen, can definitely come in and step up and play a huge role. And that's just on the worst case scenario. Best case, these guys are healthy. Now you got your nice, squad that you have together. Obviously, look like he's probably going to be got him listed playing at the 3 right now.
Yeah.
I think they did trade for Colin Sexton, so that's another guard that they have in rotation, which isn't bad. I just feel like you said, bring him in. You need somebody like this with this young core that you have. We've seen Charlotte take good players, and they just did not work out, a lot of them. So I think hopefully this is one that do work for them. Again, I think LaMelo Ball is still one of the better guards in the league. He just has to stay healthy. And that's one of the things that we can continue to deal with, is staying healthy. So for me, hell of a pickup. But now they got to make sure they go get a big, especially trading away Nurkic.
And yeah, they did do the trade earlier today, and sending Nurkic to the Jazz for Colin Sexton. And shout out to Colin Sexton finally getting out of Utah. I know he's happy. And getting Colin Sexton, I think that's low key good for Charlotte, because, like you mentioned about Ball, he hadn't been able to stay on the court like that. So now you kind of get another guy, not the passer and not the vision, like a LaMelo Ball, but you get somebody to kind of ease the pain right behind him. And Trey Man, when he gets back, he should help fill that void too, off the bench. But I think what I like about the Hornets doing, besides trading the big man away, you kind of remaking things to kind of ease things from your star players being out. I think that's the main thing. Okay, LaMelo's gone. Okay, we got Colin Sexton here and Trey Man. Okay, Brandon Miller's hurt again. We got Con Knippen, and then we got Liam McKinley from UConn to help throw on the void in the wing. So solid pick for Charlotte. I like that for them. And like I said, locker room change, culture change. All right, 5th pick before we go to break, D-Lock. The Utah Jazz selected 5th overall, Ace Bailey out of Rutgers. I'll let you have the 4 on this. Bailey didn't want to go to except for a couple teams. Didn't want to work out nowhere, barely, and trying to dictate where he's trying to go. Your thoughts on the Jazz selecting him at 5th overall?
This is a hell of a steal for Utah. I'll say that. But the fact that he clearly was showing that he did not want to be there or work for them, that's going to make that relationship a little rocky. And Now, like I said, it has to work. They got to figure it out. Um, but I think this is a big piece. Even after getting Ace Bailey, I think hearing some things. That's when we were hearing about uh, the Jazz considering trading Colin Sexton because they know what Ace Bailey and what we think he can do. Like you said, you had him projected going a little higher. So in a sense, go ahead.
I mean, besides the measurables at the combine, whatever, I've been on this for the beginning of the year, like at least top 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Probably at one time, depending what mock draft you want to do, number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. So just
So
knowing that plays a huge part in this pick for Utah. Obviously having marketing Clarkson, who I did not know Clarkson's 34.
yeah,
I just when I seen it, I was like, dang, like this dude's 34 already. So, but again, I think a hell of a pickup. Now they got to mend that relationship, and he has to go in ready to work. He comes in ready to work, ready to win, ready to play for them. I think they got a hell of a steal at 5. And you pair him with the young guy they got, in Kessler and marketing, you might have you a team that can do something. We haven't seen the Utah Jazz be good on a long time,
mm-hmm.
So we obviously know about Stockton and the mailman, but that was years back. So damn near 30 years. So I think that this is a very, very great pick. The only issue is just the fact that he didn't want to work. He basically trying to predict where he went. So they get over that. We might see the Utah Jazz still got a big steal.
Young people, if you're very talented to get to the NBA, unless you're the clear-cut number 1 overall pick, please do your due diligence and talk to these teams, work out for these teams, just for your sake. Please.
It will hurt you.
I don't know what the thought process was. And I guess according to everybody, his agent is Sharif Cooper dad. And if y'all don't know I remember who Sharif Cooper was. He was a highly talented kid coming out of high school, went to Auburn for a year, the end of the draft, probably the first round pick, but fell like in the late second round to Atlanta. And I haven't even bothered where he's at because he did not last long with the Hawks. And that now I'm looking up now, he's playing overseas right now in the French league.
Yep. Seeing it now.
So 24 years old at that. So I'm not gonna dog the agent, whatever. They circling that video of him just posing in his car or whatever. I'm not gonna get on him and all stuff like that. But if you give him that type of advice and trying to dictate where he's trying to go, that's just a really bad look on you. And now you probably set this kid up that early on that he's probably been hard to deal with. Not just with the Utah Jazz and negotiations stuff like that, but potential sponsors on this type of stuff as well. He'll get into endorsements and stuff like that, but I'm just thinking long term, if you're Ace Bailey, I don't know if he got something on you, whatever, but if you really don't, you may have to consider dropping him and get somebody else in the fold. But for him to try and dictate to go to the Wizards or whoever else he's trying to go to, I mean, it's great to do that, but You don't know what the other teams were thinking and need and all that stuff. And once I saw the Sixers pass him up, I was like, where is he going to drop? But I didn't expect. I mean, Utah going to take anybody because they're in rebuild mode. But
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to take him. So for Bailey, I know he didn't want to go to Utah, but you gotta make do, dog. You gotta make do.
Mm.
And I think another thing he can't do, he can't really slouch in his first couple of years because that would hurt his earning potential, all this stuff down the line. So for him, if you kind of look at the other guys that's come through the past 10 years or so, like Gordon Hayward, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, you could ball out there.
Oh, yeah.
But at a point in time, you know, you can leave. Get your money. There ain't much to do out of Salt Lake City. Just stay in the gym. Stay in your house. Just do you. And then, when in the next 7 years or so, bounce. So, I don't know, D-Log. This is like, I think this kid kind of shot himself in the foot. And who knows? He could have done these workouts and stuff like that. It still could have ended up in Utah. But I just thinking, the bad advice, and I know Utah's not sexy, but they have shown in the past that they can win in this league. The Wizards here lately really hasn't shown that.
Right.
The Pelicans here lately really hasn't shown that. And I forgot who else he had on his top favorites, but a lot of teams really hasn't showed, to build a winner or know how to, or have the right people in place to do that. And I can't stand Danny Ainge, but he's shown that he can do that in this league. So, with them taking Bailey here and Walter Clayton later on, I think they're trying to do that right now. But I'll let you have last word on this.
I mean, I think, like I said, you're going to make it a rougher relationship, not only with the coaches, but with the athletes, too. Other ball players, like, marketing, Dan Kessler, like, this dude ain't want to rock with us. So now they got to form some type of relationship, however they do it. So it like I said, it does make it very tricky. But again, like, this is something that him and his agent created. Now, he's a young guy. He's a young athlete, young kid. So I can't put a lot of it on him. If anything, say more about the agent. But I just think now, moving forward, this is a lesson that needs to be learned. This is not NCAA where you can hop in the transfer portal after a year. You got to be there. You know what I mean? So, and then on top of that, like I said, now you gotta be able to say, okay, cool, I'm here. Let me get the best I can. If he can do that, not only he would be good, but I think his relationship with Utah would be good as well. And then maybe, like you said, in 5 or 6 years, we might be looking at a totally different situation.
And if you're not going to show up, you're not going to get paid. So I don't know how. I mean, I know he got a lot of NIL money for Rutgers to go there. Him and Dylan Harper. So that, I'm not sure he ain't hurting for money right now. But if you ain't gonna try to show up on it now and know how hardline Danny Ainge is, you're not gonna get paid. And if you ain't getting paid, your agent ain't getting paid. And your agent ain't getting paid, his family ain't eating. So, I think smart for him. And he finally reported to the Jazz, and he's gonna show up for summer league. But it's just like, where's the thought process and all this and all that good stuff? So we'll see how things shake out for Bailey down the road here. But D-Lock, we're gonna take a break. After the break, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna try and fly through the rest of these picks for the NBA draft. But this is Fast Break here for Ice Sports Radio. You're the Follow Sports, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
And welcome back here to Fast Break here live for Ice Sports Radio, your Dream for Sports. Shout out to our sponsors; they help pay the bills here on Ice Sports Radio. So do check out our sponsors there on their respective websites and pages as well. So D-Lock, back to the draft. Let's fly through this fast as we can. Number 6, the Wizards take Trey Johnson, guard out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on the pick?
I think with what we see with Washington is they're rebuilding. They got a couple pieces. I think Chris Middleton is there, like a couple guys, but I'm not expecting too much from the Wizards right now. But I think Trey Johnson is a very good pick for them. They traded somebody,
Jordan Poole.
Yeah, so I think that he'll fit right in there, get some of that play. The Wizards are a mess, man. They've been a mess for a long time. So hopefully this kind of changes that a little bit for them.
I think for me, real quick, good guard, can score the basketball. I thought Jordan Poole could have done more with his time in the Wizards, but it just really didn't really materialize like I hoped. So now for the Wizards, they shipped him off for CJ McCollum and his expiring, all that stuff. And now, him, McCollum, Middleton, Marcus Smart, and a host of guys being out the books after next year. Now you look at this Wizards team with like potentially $100+ million off the books. I mean, for cap space. So for this young Wizards team, if some of these young guys can show promise, like Alex Sard, Trey Johnson, or whoever, I think it'll go a long way for the future. But I also say this about that potential captain they have down the line. Just don't spend it on any player. And we'll probably talk about this down the line. But if you get $100 million, don't waste your money on it. So for me, for the Wizards, I think it's a good pick. Another guy to kind of keep in rotation and, and just grow and develop in the endless continuous cycle of rebuild in Washington. Number 7, the New Orleans Pelicans select Jeremiah Fears, guard out Oklahoma. Your thoughts on this pick, D-Lock?
I'm not too much of not a big fan of it. They already got their, I think, like we talked about, I think they traded for Jordan Poole. So they got a lot of good pieces over there in New Orleans. I don't expect too much from him this year. I think, like I said, I think he can come in and play a huge part. I got to double check and look at this depth chart with this team. I think he can come in and play, but I feel like DeJounte Murray and Jordan Poole are your main pieces, your main scorers on that team with Zion. Trey Murphy as well. We see him have a hell of a season. So I think that with him, he'll come in and play, but also just looking at him, forgot about him with Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins comes in and plays extremely well from time to time also. So I think he's going to fit in that rotation somewhere. DeJounte Murray is going to be out for a while anyway. So we may see him get in. But I think that, this team, he's not even the main question on this team. The biggest person that is question on this team is Zion Williamson. What is going to happen with this guy? We've heard multiple times that he was going to be a franchise changer, and that has yet to happen. So what happens with Zion? That's just the name of the game. This team is reliant on him. It's very similar to the Philadelphia 76ers with Embiid. We need to see some type of progression from Zion. Once we can see that, then we have some. Now we can talk about these other pieces, because they're bringing pieces in, and we're not seeing too much of a difference, because the person that leads this team is Zion. He gives us spurts here or there where he plays well, then he disappears. So again, I think Fierce is a pretty decent pick, but with the guards in front of him and Zion's impact, I don't think he's going to impact a lot.
Yeah, I think Joe Dumars did his deal, trying to take a chance on Jordan Poole and see how that works. And then if it don't work out, I can ship him out. And I think, not after next year in 2026, he'll have one more year left on that deal he signed with Golden State those years back. So he'll be on an expiring deal, going to 2026, 2027 season, wherever if he stays in New Orleans or gets traded elsewhere. It was a strange pick because, like I said, you got traded for Jordan Poole, who's younger and got more contract on him. Then you got Jordan Hawkins as well. And then, Dejounte Murray. So you got at least 3 guys ahead of them that need the ball in their hands, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Jose Alvarado, who is more of a defensive guy, but, needs the ball in his hands because he's not like an off-the-ball guard. So, strange pick for the Pelicans, but I think it's one of those picks that is like for down the road, in my humble opinion. 8, that Brooklyn Nets took Edgar Diamond from point forward from BYU. This kid plays a lot like Kyle Anderson in a sense, but I think a little bit better jump shot. Your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets pick, in your opinion?
This is just one of the picks that I seen them get. That they had a lot of picks in that first round, but or this draft. This dude is huge.
Yeah.
So kind of not going to say specific exactly like, but he's a big guard like a Ben Simmons. So again, what could he bring to the table? Now they got D'Angelo Russell over there. I think as you said multiple times, I think Cam Thomas is the future. I think Cam Thomas is the future of this team. Can he come in and play a huge part with this team? Now, as big as he is, you would think he would be like one of those defenders like a Ben Simmons, but doesn't show that he had that good defensive game like that. But at the same time, with that frame, there's so much that you can do with that frame.
Yeah.
Obviously he's listed at guard, but you can move him at power forward, different spots. Being that tall, being that big, there's different places he can go, which is one of the reasons why they drafted. So, with a team like this that is, in a sense, still in rebuilding, this is a perfect spot for him, just to find his place in the NBA and on this team, and see where it goes. I think right now they're good with I think Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson are good starting pieces for this team. But now you get to add other pieces in. Not sure how much longer D'Angelo Russell is going to be there. So, Terrence Mann also. But you get Edgar. I think now you got somebody that you kind of can build with, but also pair with your young guys. But it's going to take some work. But I think, like I said, Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson will lead this team. He just need to fall in line with them.
Yeah, I think, for Edgar, I think when I looked the other day, D'Angelo Russell is a free agent. So I don't think he'll be brought back. And plus, the 5 picks they made, you don't got a room to beat somebody like that back. But, for Edgar or Igor or however you pronounce it, I think, a combo forward that needs the ball in his hand. And like you mentioned before, the Nets ain't going nowhere. So, he got plenty of time to develop and have the ball in his hand like he should. So I like the pick for the Nets. If he can develop his jump shot, get a little more girth to him, I think, he'd be a solid piece for the Nets down the line. And I think you can't put him, if you go small, you can't put him at forward because he'll get eaten alive by some of these stronger guys in the NBA. But, keeping that guard spot, kind of like a Josh Giddey type in a sense. But I think he got a little better jump shot coming out than Josh Giddey did. I think if he can do like that, develop like that.
Oh, yeah.
Sky's the limit for him. That wise, this is like a solid starter in the league. But at worst, his below ceiling is kind of like a Kyle Anderson, in my humble opinion. And Kyle Anderson, very solid player.
Yeah.
Kind of expected more out of him out of college. But, he's made his money over the past decade and been a solid contributor, all around. So I really can't hate on this pick too much. And I think it's a good pick for the Nets, which I'll talk about in my loser section here in a little bit. But number 9, the Raptors select Colin Murray Bowles out of South Carolina, swing forward for the Gamecocks. Your thoughts on this pick right here?
I think with the Raptors, they just got Brandon Ingram over there too, who we didn't see play this year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting what they do with R.J. Barrett. What they do with Scotty Barnes, who is, a power guard in a sense. He's that ball handler at that power forward position. So I think this team has decent pieces quickly. Obviously, Brandon Ingram, R.J. Barrett, and Scotty Barnes. Where does he fit in? He's definitely he's not a 3-point shooter like that. So I think he's going to come in now. Him being 6'6", as a power forward is kind of interesting to me. I'm thinking he's probably more of a guard, somewhere around there. But with that wingspan, that plays a huge part with him. So can he be that defender? But Toronto likes these. They have the history of having these longer wingspan type guys.
Yeah.
There, so he's fitting into that mold that they that they usually have, that they put together. So, I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I think it, it's pretty decent. But just about where he plays is going to be the interesting part, because I think obviously Scotty Barnes is going to play that forward position. RJ Barrett, and then when Brandon Ingram come back, that's your three that's probably going to be on the court more than anything. So where does Colin play? And again, like I said, because of that frame, do you move him up to that small forward position, or possibly that shooting guard spot to get those minutes? Because right now, like I said, there are times where Scotty Barnes is playing that point guard position. Do you bring him in then? So he's definitely not going to play the five. So for me, I think not a bad pick, but just trying to see where he's going to fit, in his rotation.
Real quick for me, it's like, I don't know, did Masai make this pick before he got let go or whatever? That's a question I got in mind. But I don't know. It's like seeing the picks that kind of came afterwards, behind this pick. It's like the Raptors could have done better. So I'll be really to see how he fits into things. Like you said, they got Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick from last year. Then you factor in RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly as well. Yeah, this kid will get a lot of time down low, but he's not. He can play down low, but it's not going to translate well in the NBA. And I think that's one thing. I think this kid's growth and development kind of hurt him, not just in college, but in high school. They never really expanded that game.
Mm-hmm.
Now you talking about dudes like 6'6", power forward, not the worst thing in the world and stuff like that, but even some of the smaller power forwards in the NBA are like 6'8", 6'9". They can dominate him early on. So I'm not a big fan of this pick. I don't know where he's gonna fit in. So we'll see how things shake out for the Raptors. Number 10, the Suns. Who picking it used to be the Rockets pick, but changed to the Suns. They took Duke big man Kaman Malikovich with the number 10 pick overall. So this is the pick that went to the for KD for the Rockets,
right?
And Jalen Green also. Your thoughts on this draft selection in your eyes?
Man, to be honest, I really like this pick. But one, we know the situation with KD moving, to Houston. At this point, this guy's getting passed around like a hot potato. He's moving all over the place. Like, he was at Golden State, and now he's just hopping from place to place. Like, is this just kind of whatever? We're expecting him to move every couple of years. But they got the pick. They got a few picks, and they got Jalen Green in this trade. So this team is basically back to being Devin Booker's team. Not only that, they got Dylan Brooks from the defender. Not only that, they went and traded for Mark Williams, who we seen earlier get traded to the Lakers, and then obviously the physical thing happened. That was their problem last year, the Suns. Clearly, they didn't have nobody. They could not defend the glass for nothing. They couldn't grab no rebounds for anybody. Even having the guys of Mason Plumlee, Richards, and I think Yusuf there at one point. So going to get this guy, I think he's going to be a hell of a piece for them. You're pairing him with Mark Williams. Nick Richards is listed here. But I think we're going to see a better team in Phoenix this year. And I just, not any knock towards KD. I think it just was so much on KD being the guy there. This team seemed like they took a step back. So for me, you talked about it when KD first got traded there, like, can these three guys stay healthy? and that's what shot him in the foot. We didn't see the Bradley Beal that was in Washington. Is there a chance that could we see that guy rise up now? Devin Booker is going to be Devin Booker. You got a hell of a piece in Jalen Green, to be honest. You got a hell of a piece in Jalen Green. Pairing him and Devin Booker is just a great combination. I wouldn't be shocked if they did try to move Bradley Beal at some different point because you got these two guys. I mean, Mark Williams, who we thought was a hell of a piece for Lakers if he would have had, his physical done. Now he's in Phoenix. And now you got this kid, come on. So you got your guys rotating bigs good. You got your defender Dillon Brooks and also Russell Neal there as well. So at that 4 position, they're pretty much somewhat kind of solid in my eyes. They're good with the guard position. And now you're bringing some depth at the center position, which is what you did. This is another Duke player that was part of that team that went that far, and that was that one of those younger team. You bring him in with the young pieces there with the Jalen Green and Devin Booker. I think this team could be pretty good. Now this team looks better than the Phoenix team last year. I know we're talking about what KD is and he can make them any shot on the court, but I just like where Jalen Green's career is going. I see where his career is he's elevating where he can be. You pair him with what we know Devin Booker already is. Now you have a 1-2 combo that can be pretty much dangerous. You're pairing, and then you add in a young guy in the center. Come on, you might have your nice little put together that can do some damage. So I like this. I really like this trade, even though he's not going to come in and start automatically. Obviously, Mark Williams there, but I think with Mark Williams there is going to help him elevate his game as well. And on top of that, you went and got you somebody in Dillon Brooks who's not expected to do a lot of damage on the offensive side, just play great defense, just like you expect in Russell Neal. So this team isn't bad, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Bradley Beal, if they start him, if they have him on the bench, coming off how he played that six-man role. But I definitely like this pick because of what it does with the depth of this team. So this is I said early, I think this Phoenix team could be a shocker next year.
I think real quick for me, you need a young big. And Grant Mark Williams from Charlotte was a good pick. I mean, good pickup, but can he stay on the court?
Yeah.
And I also said on our show's account page that y'all can follow right here. I said from our page right there, Fastbreak ISR, I said even with the Suns, drafting, come on, and getting Mark Richards later on, or Mark Williams, excuse me, later on, Kamon still gets playing time. So I'm not even sweating him going there and Mark Williams going there. I'm not even sweating that because Mark Williams can stay on the court. And you need a lot of time for this young kid to play. Now, like you alluded to, they're filling out this roster. They're flushing things out. We'll see what happens with Bradley Beal because I saw reports saying, he's open to a trade, but it's got to be the right situation.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see about that. But good pickup for the Suns here. I like the move and somebody for the future down the line in the big man position. Because Nick Richards, Mark Williams, they really haven't done much in their early careers. And now you got 3 former big men out in the desert. Number 11, the Trailblazers select Cedric Coward out of Washington State, who this pick got traded to the Grizzlies, who they in turn picked for Portland. They took Hassan, caught myself, Hasten Wong out of China. So, but we talk about this pick here. Cedric Coward going to the Grizzlies. Your thoughts on that?
I think it was something that they needed, knowing they moved on from Desmond Bane. I think KCP is probably your 3-and-D guy there. Cole Anthony is a pretty solid piece as well. I just don't see him just being their starting guard right now. Jalen Wells, obviously, we know what he can do. But Cedric Howard comes in, and he can be that guy that comes in at that 2 position. Like I said, I think you have, the rest of these guys that can play well. You got your 3-and-D guy, but now you got Cedric Kyle who can go in and get you some points. Because obviously now with Desmond Bane gone, they need somebody to replace those points. And Ja Morant can't drop 60 a night. So for me, great pick. Now, again, the minutes thing is going to be something that's very questionable because this is another team that has the rotation of guys. They just have it at the 4 position. You know what I mean? Aldama's going to get in. Brandon Clark, G.D. Jackson, those guys are going to get in. They're going to get their minutes. Now it's about what the rest of these guys are going to do with it when they get the opportunity. So for me, I like the pick. It's something that this team needed. Scottie Pippen had a pretty decent. He's been playing pretty well recently.
Yeah.
Not on this season, but the season before. He's been, kind of doing his thing. The person that might be out of the loop a little bit now is Luke Kennard with this pick. I think even though he may get his minutes, I think Cedric Howard comes in and steals some of those minutes. So I definitely like this pick. And Memphis is always going to be a team that's going to be competitive as long as Ja Morant is there. I think that what hurts them is how can Jared Jackson stay out of foul trouble? If he can stay out of foul trouble and continue being a decent defender, then this team could be a force to reckon with in the playoffs. So you bring somebody else in who obviously losing what Desmond Bane was probably averaging, I think, 20 points a game, 19, 20 points a game.
Yeah.
KCP is not giving you 20 points a game. He's better off giving you maybe two or three steals a game, and maybe 6 or 7 points. So you're going to have to replace that production, and I think that's what they try to do with Cedric.
So we'll see what happens with Cedric and going to the Grizzlies. Not going to the Trailblazers, but going to the Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
And over the past few years, the Grizzlies been accumulating these young talent and turning to pretty decent role players for the most part. And they've been able to package those young guys to other deals around the league. So we'll see how it goes for Cedric in Memphis, and does he stay in a long term there? So it'd be weird to see what happens there in Memphis. Number 12, Noah Isingay from France. I'll be honest with you, I think I maybe read a scouting report on him, but there were so many French guys I was trying to keep up with. I think, I got lost in the sauce there. Your thoughts on this pick for the Bulls?
I think the Bulls got a lot going on, but they just traded away Lonzo Ball, and we're talking about all of what they've given away and what they got in return.
Yeah.
Not a bad pick. I think that he's going to have to play a hell of a lot at the 4 and the 5 position. My thing is, because of looking at it, they don't have anybody. I mean, you guys had Collins, but he's up and down.
Yeah.
Jalen Smith, who actually was pretty decent with the Pacers, we haven't seen too much of him. So for me, I think that this team is still fairly young, but it's being led by Josh Giddey and Kobe White. So the biggest question is, what do they do with Vooch?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that determines a lot about this team. Now, going to get Isaac Okoro, to be honest with you, I don't even know what the hell is that about for them. I think it was just more so getting rid of Lonzo Ball. But I would expect, Noah to get in the game more because of how this team is put together. And he's, like I said, obviously one of the younger players in the league, but I think he's known, looking at a lot of his games, he does find a way to get to the free throw line. So he's put in a group where, Kobe White, Josh Giddey, we see these guys go to the free throw line. So expect this team to be at the free throw line a lot. It's just, can they stick around? And they don't have that many bigs down there. So this is their weakness. This is where, they may go against teams that have a lot of bigs, like an OKC team, that can cause them issues. So for me, I like the pick. It's just how long does he benefit them, or do they look to add more into that position, to the power forward and center position?
I think real quick for me, this is a pick to see. This is a pick that you hope turns good. And some of the guys in the broadcast brought this up. You can find your Giannis's and Kobe Bryant's, Devin Booker's in this range. We've seen it happen before. For the Bulls, I think they try. They saw it with what's the kid from last year? Name's in front of me right now. Damn, let me go look it up real quick. Mattis. You took a gamble on him, worked out pretty good for you, and now you're kind of hoping the same thing, this time around. So it's a wait and see for, I think, both of us, how this kid turns out. Do they put him to the fire early, or do they do it slowly? It'd be real interesting to see how that goes about. But number 13, the Hawks, who was selected for the Pelicans, select Derek Queen, big man out of Maryland. The Pelicans, in doing this trade, D-Lock, they gave up their next year's first-round pick, unprotected, going to the Hawks to get Derek Queen. Your thoughts on that move and the pick of Derek Queen going to the Pelicans?
My biggest thing with him is he just got to him pairing with Zion. It could be very dangerous.
Yeah,
this could be very dangerous. Obviously, we know New Orleans definitely got some. I'm not a big seafood person, but they do a lot of Cajun and different food there. Historically, we see the history that Zion goes through there, but I think this guy could be a very good piece for them if he can stay healthy and stay in shape. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
he has to do that. I just feel like, Zion already is an issue that they already have, as we talked about with Jeremiah. He is the lead of this team. Now, can Derek Queen come in and just do his own thing and start to lead himself? Then that's a totally different situation. But like I said, he has, again, this is another team that has the guards. They're just getting depth at the center position. With Jeffrey Messi and Carlo, but to be honest with you, Carlo Mikovic, he gets in, but he's more so of a forward to me. So I kind of can see Derek Queen getting a hell of a lot of run at the center position. It just, can he stay in shape? If he stays in shape, this is a big piece. If not, we might be seeing some big issues.
I think for me, real quick, Joe gave up a lot for a big man that he's pretty decent, but like I mentioned earlier about the next year's potential class, if the ping pong goes in your favor, you're talking about some good combo forwards and a good combo guard coming out in that next year's draft. Now, having said all that, we talked about the earlier Pelicans pick, how loaded they are in a sense in the backcourt, and a lot of young guys hopefully take their leap. And I also forgot about Trey Murphy being there too. Trey Murphy and Herb Jones be back in the fold. So you look at this Pelicans team, it all depends, like you mentioned about Zion, it all depends on him. But if he's out and Derek Queen can come in and stabilize that front court scoring and show promise as a rookie, I think they'll go a long way for this Pelicans team. But I think this move was made for that, to kind of help stabilize that scoring down low. You don't have the athleticism of Zion, but You talk about somebody can score, get his own basket down low. He's your dude. So I like the pick, but I just hate how Joe Dumars gave up so much for him. And then, T5 the Great, he brought up about the picks. He said, F them Marty McFly futuristic picks. The lottery is rigged. If you don't have a pair you like, go get them and save. And scare money don't make money. Yeah, I mean, Joe Dumars like the kid enough to trade up and get him. So we'll see if it pays off, and we'll see what the pick turns into for the Hawks come next draft. Let's see. We're going. Okay, 5 for these. Carter Bryant, 14 pick on the Spurs. Your thoughts on this?
Another shooter. I think another piece that they needed. Like I said, you already got Dylan Harper and Stephen Castle there. You added somebody else in who is at the full position, but he's gonna help with Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan. So you bring him in. I think now you bring another shooter in. That is a 3-and-D type guy, which is the type of guys that the Spurs have in their rotation. They're going to have the shooters. They're going to need some defenders somewhere. That's what they're going to have. They're going to have their guards be able to score at any time, anywhere, and then they have their 3-and-D guys. He just adds on to it.
I'm going to wait and see on this one because he didn't wow me in Arizona, but with the Spurs, they kind of been slow building this, so we'll see how this turns out. Like I said, I don't think Jeremy Sohan is going to be in the long-term plans for them. So if he can come in and kind of replace that production that Sohan showed, I think, Sohan be gone. But I think this is kind of like, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
15, the Thunder, the newly crowned NBA champs, take Thomas Sober from Georgetown, the big man out of Georgetown. Your thoughts on this?
Just another piece. As I said before, this team already has their depth. They're fine. They don't really need too much. They're just adding in a little bit of rotation of guys that they can kind of bring in. They can bring in and say, okay, well, hey, we need you to come in and step in for Chet, or Jalen Williams. So I don't really see him making too much of an impact just yet. But I definitely think later on down the road, they're building him for that. And this is what I mean by this team. They're going to stay young and continue to keep their rotation flowing. It keeps these guys healthy. So when the season playoffs do come around, now these guys are ready and energized. Again, we talked about it, not to get off too topic with Tibbs, with the Knicks. They didn't have the rotational guys throughout the season. So it paid off. It hurt them during the playoffs. OKC is preparing for that to not happen.
I think real quick for me, this is a guy, I don't say drafting stash, but you're basically stashing him for the year and stuff like that, and you're not asking him to contribute all that stuff. So, guys, if Hartenstein become too injury prone and stuff like that, or Chet Holmgren's price becomes too high, then you can slot this guy in. Hopefully, he can come in and play well for you. I know I saw earlier today they gave Jalen Williams a 3-year, $24 contract extension, so he could be there for a couple more years. So once that contract is up, and if Sober is good to go, so Bar could be good to go, then I think, if you're OKC, you're not really hurting. And like we alluded to about OKC earlier, they got a host of picks down the line. So just another pick that can develop and take their time with the team loaded for next year's run at the title. 16, the Grizzlies. This pick going to the Trailblazers to take Ulsan Yang out of China. D-Lock, I saw some people say on Twitter that this dude's like a Chinese Jokic.
I've been hearing the same thing.
Your thoughts on this pick and for the Blazers?
I mean, he could be that guy, but I don't know if we see it that much because of the depth that they have at the center position. They DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams. playing again. I don't see him getting in front of those guys. Now, if he does get a chance and he makes the best of it, we might be having a different conversation. So, I mean, like I said, if he could be that guy that they're claiming that he can be, maybe we see it at a different team. Possibility. But again, like you said, looking at his average, 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks, 3 assists. In China, okay, that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. But my thing with him is, can he get in this rotation? Now, with Trailblazers getting blown out all season long, he may get a chance to get in rotation or injury situations with the Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton. We may see him. But if he can live up to that possible Joker claim that they say, we may see it in Portland, we may see it somewhere else.
I seen the highlights. I'm like, The I know Chauncey didn't make this pick, but damn, their front office didn't put him in a nice win position with this pick at all. And guys like Asen Newell, going later in the draft, and then some of the other guys I was kind of like bigging up in the second round, who became second round picks that should have won the first. I was like, damn, they're doing Chauncey no favors here with this pick. Now you got like Drew Holiday that, I think he'll show up there and play for Portland, but he ain't happy being there. Scoot Henderson really hasn't popped hit like he should. DeAndre Ayton, he is what he is now. So the Blazers just got a bunch of dudes, but they seem like they kind of coming around with some of those dudes. It's kind of like a hot collective mess that Chauncey's still trying to sort out and put in the right rotation for the squad. 17, the Timberwolves take Johan Bergner, big man from France. Your thoughts on this pick here?
You're trying to get another Gobert. The fact that he has a 7'4" wingspan is crazy. Under 7 feet is what I think. The big thing with him is he's a young guy also. So I think this is just another developmental piece. We just seen Naz Reid get that extension.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna see a hell of a lot more from him. But this is a perfect person to learn under Gobert, in my opinion. Now, Gobert obviously known for his defensive, his defense. I think he definitely can help this guy move forward. But at this point, I think these guys that we're starting to see get picked, they're not really going to come in and make a huge impact just yet. Mm-hmm. These are guys that are going to come in and get developed. And I definitely see him as a development player who could be good in the near future, but being a development piece is what you kind of look for, especially when you have a young guy, Anthony Edwards, on your team.
Yeah, for me, this is like hell. If the Timberwolves are smart, I'll say just stick him, just let him play in France one more year. Now I know they say during the draft that he's gonna come over and be on the roster, but I would just stick him one more year in France, and it's not gonna hurt. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna work. It's not gonna hurt. You still got Luke Garza there or whatever. Play him, like you should mention. They re-signed Naz Reid for a 5-year deal. Julius Randle got a deal as well. So, just stick him in France for another year or wherever he's playing at and get some more burning time. Ensure that until that club will start him every game. And then come next year, 26, 27, you got a more seasoned young kid to play for your rotation. But 18, I think one of your favorite picks, Walter Clayton Jr. was picked by the Wizards, but going to the Jazz. Your thoughts on Walter Clayton going to the Nets, in your opinion? I mean, to the Jazz, in your opinion?
I mean, obviously now they're moving Colin Sexton. I think he gets a chance to come in and show what he can do. Knowing Ace Bailey's there, you're still gonna have a couple of guys. I think Isaiah Collier, also. I think that this team needs a little bit more depth at that guard position as well. So I think, not to say too much about him. Obviously, he won a championship for the University of Florida Gators, my favorite team. I just think that he's going to come in and play a huge, huge part in his rotation. And this is the perfect team for him to go to with the team that rotates a lot of guards, how they do. So him, Ace Bailey being there, I think that's a good combination. And they just got to build upon it. But we keep seeing Utah rotate these young pieces. That's all they do is have a lot of young pieces. They rotate them and they move on from them. So hopefully Ace and Walter Clayton could be a good pair for them in the future. Instead of just having them for like a couple of years and then boom, they trade them, let them go somewhere else. And now they're playing better for somebody else. We've seen it happen multiple times.
I think real quick for me, I said this on the show's account page, man. Like, once they got to him, Colin Sexton was gone. I said, okay, him and Colin Sexton can't play on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, Clayton ain't gonna go. So, and which we saw earlier today, Sexton got traded to the Hornets for Nurkic, and seemed like the Jazz got like a big man now. So we'll see what happens there. But good pickup for them. He really kind of came to his own scoring wise, especially down in Florida. And it showed that during the tournament when he was kind of the only one they really depend on scoring the ball like that. And he showed up big time for them, especially they're going to the NCAA championship. Like one of the better players in the whole tournament. So Utah getting a winner and stuff like that, I think go a long way for them. Building hopefully a good culture there out in Salt Lake City. But 19, the Nets, take Nolan Toure out of France. Your thoughts on this pick?
I think he's a developmental player as well. He's gonna be pretty decent. I just don't see him as coming in with a lot of minutes. I don't think he's ready for that yet. Especially with a team that have a D'Angelo Russell who can go out there and it's gonna start. I think he's a very good developmental player. And he obviously said that he's definitely a shooter. But with this team, Brooklyn, again, I think it's the fact that Cam Thomas leads his team. He's going to be the one that stars for his team and get buckets. So I think he's going to be one of the ones that Nolan's going to be one of the ones that come in a rotation, but still building, becoming a better player. So I think that's going to be his main role, especially with a team like the Brooklyn Nets.
He should get some playing time. Don't rush it and see how it develops and whatnot. They got 5 first-round picks. They got to figure out time for it. So figure it out. If they keep Cam Johnson past the summer, his time will be limited. But if they do trade Cam Johnson to a contender, then I think it'll open more minutes for him and Noah Clowney as well. So this is one of those picks like, throw him out there, see what he has, and then go from there. 20, the Heat take Kaspas Stanukas, guard out of Illinois. Your thoughts on this one?
I think he possibly may get some minutes. I think, like I said, the Heat just re-signed Davion Mitchell.
Yeah.
So, him and Tyler Hero obviously going to lead the charge. I thought Andrew Wiggins was going to get traded during this draft, to be honest with you, at one point. I thought he was about to get shipped out. But I think he's going to be a pretty decent player for Miami. I think the only thing that I know that sticks out with him is he does turn the ball over. Spo is definitely not going to have that. So And I think we'll have to see what happens with his minutes. But again, I think he can be a very good player. He's one of the ones hearing that you put a chip on his shoulder, he could be somebody that can do something in the NBA. And those are the kind of guys that Pat Riley likes. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of heat culture that they like down there in Miami. Is those guys that have a chip on their shoulder that are playing for something. So I think that he's going to be pretty decent. It's just when it comes to rotation, is he going to get in? Because now clearly with the move that they just made with Davion Mitchell, I think we're going to see a hell of a lot more Davion Mitchell this year than we did last year.
I think for me, I think a good guard to kind of grow with this team. And if he can come in and develop his point guard skills, like I hope he does, because I had him more pegged as a lottery pick. If he come in and, develop those point guard skills, now you put Hero down at the 2, still got Bam at center. So I think this pick, I hope it flushes out the natural order of everything. And he can shoot the ball when not handling the ball. If he can come in and do those things for Miami, now he's like Hero down back to his natural place. Now he's got to figure out holes at the 3 spot and the 4 spot. And hopefully, the Heat, Carl Rare kind of came along. So some of those young guys kind of coming along for the Heat. So those guys keep coming on or coming along, I think they'll be kind of flying back up right, sort of. We'll see. 21, Will Riley goes to the Washington Wizards. Your thoughts on this pick?
Like I said, I'm not too mad about it. I think for me, I just feel like the Wizards are a mess. So anything that you get out of the Wizards, you're like, how long are we going to see CJ McCollum in Washington? Hell, he might get traded during the season at some point. So, so it to me, this is another player who can make a difference on this team. Showing he's about 6'8". It just got to figure out where he fits. But also this team, again, like I said, if you look at it, I mean, we're not the top players on this team that had a pretty decent season last year was Alex Sarr. They just got Chris Middleton over there, and obviously we know what Bud Carrington can do. So for me, Alvin Brogdon is over there. So for me, I just got to figure out where he fits with this team and what can he provide for this team. But also, like I said, since the Wizards are a mess, man, it kind of goes up and down to see what the hell going on with them. But again, this could be a piece that they can use to build. And that's the thing that we have lacked to see with the Wizards. They are trading for a vet always, and it doesn't work out. They trade for vets, it doesn't work out. So we got to see what happens. But I think, like I said, I think it's a decent pick. But they literally need to be started from scratch, and he needs to be part of that team that they're rebuilding with.
Real quick for me, I think, there's another pick that, we just got to throw a young guy out there and see how it does. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and just hope for the best. Maybe trade away Corey Kispert. Maybe throw away trade away Johnny Davis sometime this offseason and give some of these young guys more room to breathe and stuff like that. All right, we're getting to the stretch here. But 22, the Nets, Drake Powell out of UNC. Combo guard, in a sense, more of a wing combo. Your thoughts on this pick going to the Nets?
Developmental. I think he has a little bit of time. But also, like I said, these picks that the Nets are making, man, it's clearly showing who's going to be the guy on this team. If anybody plays NBA fantasy, which we did last year, no money league, we just literally just played, together. Cam Thomas is going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. I'm going to say it now. Because right now, if you're looking at what this team has, I mean, yes, D'Angelo Russell, Cam Johnson is going to be him, Claxton, Terrence Mann, D'Anthony Melton, Ed Gordie, and Drake Powell. These are the guys that they have. So who's going to take the bulk of the usage? Not necessarily the points, but the usage of the team. Usage of offense. Usage meaning rebounds, offensive rebounds, assists, defensive usage, steals, blocks. I think Cam Thomas is going to take a bulk of what this team does. The usage is going to be through Cam Thomas because Drake Powell, just like Edgar, just like Nolan, these guys are developmental guys. I think there's one person I think that probably could come in there that can play a huge part is Keon Johnson.
Yeah.
I think that's the only person that I can see that can kind of come in and say, okay, he's going to come in and play a lot, as much as Cam Thomas. But outside of that, I don't see these other guys coming in and getting a high usage amount. Drake Powell, like I said, very developmental. I think you're going to see a little bit of him this year. But just don't think he's super NBA ready just right at this moment. It'll take some time. He'll get there. But I just think it's going to take, a little bit of development, a little bit of time to get to that. And this is the perfect team to do that.
So, yeah, I think it's more development for him. A very good defensive guy, but I think, his offensive game still needs a lot of work and, hopefully gets the time to develop that. We'll see. But just defensively, I think he come in and play. Just offensively, just like
it's not there.
Not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, with NIL and stuff like that, I figure, come back another year and develop those traits with Hubert Davis, but he decided to go and leave and hit to the Nets. But 23, this was the pick swap with the Pelicans and the Hawks. The Hawks get Asa Newell going to the Hawks, big man out of Georgia. Clint Capella is a free agent, probably guaranteed gone.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, for this kid, he'll get his time in a Hawks uniform. Your thoughts on the draft? On the move?
I think he does too. Another reason why I think he does is because obviously we know what Nduki Okongwu is, but we also know what Porzingis is as well, and that is injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know you're probably not going to see that. You're probably not going to see that much of Porzingis. Muhammad Guy, he's probably going to be somebody that gets in a lot, but this is a perfect spot for him to get his chance to get his minutes and get his reputation up. He's going to be somewhere that he's going to get a lot of playing time. Like, granted, him being in Georgia already, I think Athens is literally like 2 hours probably from Atlanta, so it's not too far, that far. So as far as adjustments in places and where to live, that'll be an easy adjustment to make. But I think this is a perfect place for him, knowing that they have all those guards and Trae Young and Karis LeVert and Dyson Daniels. Jalen Johnson had a pretty good season. Definitely stood up and showed what he can do. Zachary also did as well. I think he came in when he got the chance to play. He did. So those positions, I think Atlanta is fine. But Clint Capella possibly being gone, see where he lands. And them trading for Porzingis, who we know has injury issues. I think Adrian Noel is probably going to get a lot of playing time, and we're going to see what he's really made of.
So, good pickup for the Hawks, and we'll see how that works out for them. 24, the Thunder, who traded his pick to the Kings, select Nick Clifford, guard out of Colorado State, going to the Sacramento Kings. Your thoughts on this pick here?
I'm not mad at the pick. I just don't know how much playing time he gets with that Kings roster. Hell of a pickup. But with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, I think these are going to be guys that they're going to lean on. Keon Ellis also, and Jake. But also we know who plays a lot in both forward positions is Trey Lyles. So I think Nick Clifford is going to get some time, get some chances. But I just think it just depends on where they fit him in the rotation with these guys that they have. The Knicks are the Kings are kind of were in that situation similar to the Knicks, but they will play their guys. The thing is, does Nick Clifford play with these different rotational guys that they have? So that's the question that we will definitely see.
25, your Orlando Magic stay put and wait out the board. They took Jace Richardson, guard out of Michigan State. I'll let you have the floor on this one. What you thought of Jace Richardson going to the Michigan State, where his dad used to play for a couple of years for the Orlando Magic?
It was definitely needed. I mean, you're looking at the fact that you traded away Cole Anthony and KCP, so you moved two guards. I think Anthony Black plays a lot more this year in replace of Cole Anthony, but now Desmond Bane is going to be a starting guard, and you're going to have somebody else come in. So I think getting Richardson was a hell of a piece. Being the fact that he can play where his dad played, that's a huge bonus. But I think now he's going to move into that. He may move into that backup point guard position, and you might have Anthony Black play the 2 guard at some point. So I definitely like that pick as well. And also, you still got Jett Howard.
Good pickup for y'all. I think, like, early on, like you mentioned about Anthony Black being there, I think, you're not rushing to play him and whatnot. So I think it's a good pickup for him and develop for the long term. Also, with Jalen Suggs, he's like, the potential's there, but it's like he can't stay on the court at times. It's like, and then Jace Richardson, he got the potential. He doesn't have the size like his dad did, but he's still 6'3". So I think it's a good pickup for y'all. And like you mentioned about Cole Anthony, if he can develop and kind of surpass what Cole Anthony did, I think Orlando's will be a good spot for the next couple years. Next up, I'm going to kind of like this up. The Nets had back-to-back picks. They took Ben Saraf from Israel and then Danny Wolf, big man from Michigan. Your thoughts on these 2 picks here?
Rotational guys. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier. If these guys are developmental pieces. Ben is going to be all right, but I think shooting is inconsistent. I think having another big like Danny, he's going to come in and get a few minutes with the younger guy that they have. But this team is going to be built. This is Cam Thomas' team. Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson. This is what it's going to run behind. And this team is basically developing pieces. I won't be surprised if we see some of these pieces get moved for a star player at some point in the near future.
I think this is the point of the draft, and Bob Myers brought this up, but this is the point of the draft, like you could have flipped these 2 picks for something like a future pick, first round pick year next year or year before or year after. But I don't think nobody really took those deals, whatever, for whatever reason, and they stuck with these picks. For Ben Saraf, I think if he does come over and play, play him, but I think you can stash him for another year. Danny Wolf, big man out of Michigan. We'll see what happens with Nicholas Claxton. But if Claxton is gone, then that big man spot is up for grabs for anybody, those bigs for the Nets. So, we'll see how those 2 dudes develop for the Nets. 28, the Celtics select Hugo Gonzalez out of Spain. Let me say this, man. In the second round, D-Lock, there were guys that I had pegged as first rounders that could have won the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Jones, Rasheed Fleming. Who else? Chaz Lanier. What's the kid's name? I'm trying to find his name. I don't have it in front of me. I thought I had it. Maximine Reynard. Those guys I had pegged in first round picks. And the Celtics just took a dude that you don't expect a lot of in year one. And I know the Celtics are going through, I don't say tear down, but kind of get out of cap hell. But I figure if you took a good, prospect, maybe you can, when Jason Tatum come back, maybe you can turn it into something and off the races till you go. Your thoughts on the pick, real quick.
He's not a big time shooter from 3-point land, and the Boston Celtics are. So that lets you know a lot. This is going to be a developmental player as well. Like you said, we're at the point of the draft where now a lot of these guys are, like you said, they're kind of reaching for some of these guys, and they're filling some voids of just kind of putting guys on the back end of their roster. The Celtics, like you said, they have a lot of other issues going on right now with the cap hit. So these pieces are just here for developmental pieces. Also, we may see them being flipped next year. But again, the fact that, like I said, he's not a guy that is a big time 3-point shooter, I don't see him being in Boston too long. He may land somewhere else in the near future.
And 29, the Suns, whose pick is going to the Hornets, drafted Liam McKinley out of UConn, forward out of UConn going to the Hornets. Your thoughts on this selection?
I like it. Big time steal, in my opinion. I think I want to see what he does next to Brandon Miller. If he gets a chance to get in that rotation. This Charlotte got a hell of a lot to work. Hell of a lot they got to work on as well. So I think if he gets a chance to get in, this could be a steal if they can get this guy to do something. If they can get this guy to do something, this could be a major steal for the Charlotte Hornets. This is a huge thing to draft.
I think for me, like I mentioned earlier about Con Kniffel, another guy that kind of changed things in the locker room. And we've seen the past few years with this Hornets team, Sile got a lot of knuckleheads on the team in a sense. And that's including LaMelo Ball. But Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, seem like a lot of knuckleheads in that locker room. And now you're getting some guys that can infuse some winning traits for that franchise to kind of go on that, not say to the next level, but kind of just like, okay, do a U-turn? We kind of drove down the wrong way for a little while, but kind of do a U-turn and kind of reset things. So I love the pick for them and give you another guy to kind of develop. This case, Brandon Miller missed time again. If Brandon Miller missed time again, then, at least you got these two guys to kind of offset the load right there. But finally, D-Law, the 30th pick, the Clippers select Yannick Cohen Nissenhauer, big man out of Penn State. Your thoughts on the pick, on the last pick of the first round?
Big time 7-footer. I mean, Zubac is going to be Zubac in my eyes. So I guess you're just bringing in a little bit of competition with him, somebody else that you can come in and have in rotation. Not too much of a difference. We just seen bigger news for them is the fact that the James Harden situation. So right now, this is more so of I look at some of these pieces as just a competitive, adding depth to your team. You know what Zubac is going to do, so now you bring somebody else in to get him some competition. So then when Zubac is out, now he can just simply replace Zubac at that time. So for me, not a bad pick, but we got to see what happens when he gets there. He has the guy that he can play with, but I think this is a solid piece that can help the Clippers.
I think for me, it's just like, okay, you take this big man, you're playing behind Zubac. I think you can do some things behind that. Because the Clippers have like a size behind Zubac and it kind of showed at times in the playoffs. So if he can come in and develop me and be like a solid rotation guy early on, I think it'll be a good thing for the Clippers. Because the past couple of years they have drafted guys, but they really haven't done much with them.
Mm-hmm.
And which, you figure they should have played these guys a little bit more, like a Kobe Brown, for example. If you got those guys more time, more rotation, you're not so dependent on guys like Nick Batum and others to play heavy minutes for you. So I think for the Clippers, yeah, he's a good pickup, I think. But are you going to still be trying to be top heavy, or are you going to play and develop these guys, for the future? And I know, Steve Ballmer don't like the word future, but at some point in time, dog, you gotta look at that ball, that barrel, and try to reset things. Like you mentioned about James Harden, he's re-signing. So I think for this Clippers team, I think you gotta find the right young pieces, but play those guys. That's the thing. You gotta play them, and I think that's kind of being like I won't say a black mark or Talu's Clipper run, but the young guys ain't really getting a lot of burn with your squad. So before we got here, D-Lock, your winners real quick of the NBA draft as a whole.
Man, to be honest, I think the team that did make a huge win for me was the Phoenix Suns. I know everybody looks at the fact that Kevin Durant isn't there. That was a big piece that they traded away. But let's be honest, what big of an impact did he make over there? You know what I mean? That's just the honest truth. We know what KD is. We know we talk about him being the OKC KD, the MVP, Golden State KD. He still could be that guy, but I think that's not they needed a different KD in Phoenix. And now with that trade, you still got Devin Booker as your guy. Like he's gonna be, the top dog on that team. You ain't got Jalen Green. That's a hell of a young piece. And then you went and got the guy from Charlotte. Like I think that's a huge piece as well. So for me, I say Phoenix because I just feel like they, not just the picks, but the trade that they made, the player that they got. Technically, Jalen Green is a pick that you got, a hell of a pick. So you get him. You know what I'm saying? I think that was a big win for me. And I think it's a big, big win. I think this, like, again, I said earlier, I think this Phoenix team is going to be a hell of a lot better than what we've seen in the past. Now it's not going to be so much of what we've seen. But we've seen Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and KD, and we're like, oh, well, hell, this team is going to be one of the top teams in the NBA. And it didn't happen. But I think with this team, the expectation is not going to be as much. Therefore, I think this team shines and they look a hell of a lot better with two young guards, with the young guy they got down low.
Let's see. Well, I seen Bobby Portis is re-signing with the Bucks, 3 years, $44 million. So he's there for the long haul. So we'll see what Giannis does and all that stuff. So my winners real quick. The Mavs, of course, getting Cooper Flag, no brainer, and hopefully develops into a franchise player that that they need to replace Luka with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they ain't gonna pan out, then God have mercy on Nico's soul. Because if he was getting depth fresh before and Cooper Flag don't pan out, that man got to move his family to like the northern part of Canada to get away from folks.
Yes.
And you and I know ain't nothing up there except this cold and ice. Another winner for me, I like what the Hornets did. Just get some guys that can score on the wing and whatnot and space out some shooters. But I think a culture reset is desperately needed for this Hornets franchise. And getting those guys in, I think they can help with that. Another pick I like is the Thunder. Sober can come in, be a solid big man, and no rush in that. And then, like I said, we talked about earlier about the Thunder playing the house playing by all the picks, in my humble opinion. Your losers, real quick.
Brooklyn. I think as much as I said that this is going to be Cam's team. A lot of these players that got developmental pieces. When you draft people or draft athletes, or draft players, I think you want a lot of times, especially in the NBA, you're drafting for them to impact now. You got 2 rounds. I think they're there to impact now. And a lot of these picks that Brooklyn have are solid pieces, but for the future, for 2 or 3 years down the road. So you got a lot of draft picks, yes, but you could have used some of these draft picks to move up, up the charts and got another player.
Yeah.
So that's something that they could have done with all these draft picks, especially with teams that like a Philly who already has their base. You could have traded a lot of picks to Philly and moved up and got you somebody. So, or San Antonio, as we talked about, going to get Dylan Harper. So a lot of these players they got are not bad. I just think that they're setting up their future, 2 or 3 years down. And when you do that, the coaches at most when teams do that, they don't be there that long. General managers, they get fired. So I think this is not a huge win for Brooklyn, in my opinion. I mean, they've had a huge turnover the past 2 or 3 years of players, but I just think that the approach could have been a hell of a lot better, more aggressive, more. I'm trying to win now. You got to take your shots, man. You got to figure out what you want to do. If you want to be good, you got to start taking those risks. And they played it very safe. And playing it safe doesn't win you championships. Doesn't get you to be competitive, especially in the East. So that's one thing to me, man. I think one team specifically, that was a huge loser to me. Another team was the Washington Wizards.
You think so?
For me, I think getting McCollum, it's not obviously it's going to be him. They already have a young group. Is just looking at some of these pieces, like they don't have, you don't know where they're going. And for me, they have their young pieces, but they're always lost with what they're doing. They have pieces. We've seen them with Russ. We've seen them have Kyle Kuzma, a couple good guys, but they get these pieces and what they do with them. They don't do anything with them. So we see this, and that's why for me, I might be jumping the gun, but I'm expecting the same thing that I've seen from the Wizards for prior years. You know what I mean? The same exact thing. Damn, you had Bradley Beal and Russ on the same team. You mean to tell me y'all couldn't make something out of that? Kyle Kuzma there. You tell me you can do something out of that? Now you got Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum. Why would I expect to make a huge turnaround? So now Alex Sarr, I think, is a up-and-coming star. I just think he's going to be legit moving forward. But what Alex Sarr and Bud, like they have a decent core, but what are they going to do with it? Or are we going to be looking in 2 or 3 years that they're back in the lottery again and they're picking somebody else? So I just feel like now we've seen this story already from the Wizards. Can we see something else? So for me, I would say obviously Brooklyn is it for sure. And right now, hopefully I'm wrong, I would say the Wizards, the other team.
I'm going to start with this. The Nets. If none of the teams from the top 5 didn't want to budge, to the back, the Hornets did want to budge, but they weren't worried about that guy not being there when they selected him, which is understandable. But the Nets, the 8th pick, okay, fine. But the other ones you could have flipped to get up a little bit. And I kind of look back at the draft order. If y'all kind of wondering what I'm looking at, I'm kind of looking back and forth with this draft order. For the Nets, Walter Clayton could have fit in nicely to replace D'Angelo Russell. Derek Queen. It's almost like it runs together like Dairy Queen in a sense. So, but Derek Queen's another guy you can get down low for your scoring. So I just think, Kanal Mulak from Duke. So I just think a lot of things that they could have flipped those picks, not even for this year's class, but maybe for next year's class as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's another thing. Like, at least to flip the last 2 first-round picks, like you see on your screen right there, ladies and gentlemen, flip those, for something for down the line. And maybe you get lucky for the draft. So I look at that. flip those and do something there. The Jazz. It was a good pick to get one of the better players in the draft. But are you shooting yourself in the foot knowing this kid didn't really want to be there?
True.
And that's something to really think about. Yeah, he could work out, but I don't think that kid's going to be there for the long haul. Talking about Ace Bailey. And who knows? Things could change. He can stick around for years to come. But right now, you're taking a huge gamble for a kid that really doesn't want to be there in Utah. So I get in the loser thing right there, just because as soon as this kid got an opportunity to go, he's going to go. Regardless if he's a draft bust or not, he's going to go. Lastly, the draft coverage. D-Lock, I don't know which broadcast you watched, or maybe you didn't watch it all during live. I watched the ABC one. The one host is fine. I forgot his name. He's been with ESPN for years. He's fine. I said this for my Twitter account, man. Stephen A. doesn't have to be on every damn program. I'm one of those that I don't mind Stephen A., but sometimes you can put him to the side, and you don't need him for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think, ESPN employs too many people not to plug somebody else there to kind of talk about the prospects and stuff like that, and all that good stuff, to kind of give, fans at home or casual viewers, insights on these players, to kind of talk these guys up, and they kind of dropped the ball with that. And then, instead of watching the broadcast, him and Brian Myers are just like sniping shots at each other at any chance they get.
Yes.
That's not helping your broadcast. And I know we live in the content era of sports and entertainment and all that stuff, but damn, you gotta sell the league. And that's one thing. Adam Silver got to work, get to these networks. So I'm like, hey man, can we shake up the draft coverage of who announces and whatnot? And then on the ESPN side of things, like I mentioned earlier, you got Malika Andrews there that nobody really likes. Andrea Carter, who's okay. Kendra Perkins, who admitted on air that he really don't know too much about these guys. So why do we have him there? In which we got Jay Williams and Coach Greenberg, and Fran Fraschilla, who covers these college kids. Why they're not on the air? Jay Bills is there. Shams, of course, insider, he's there. But I just think in ESPN over the past few years, in the NBA draft coverage and NBA coverage at how they cover the league as a whole, they've been really dropping the ball. How they, going about, talking about this league. Football, they got down pat to a good point. But NBA wise, they got to figure out something, because like I said, some of the personalities you don't want to hear and talk about, and the algorithm on Twitter and stuff like that, they see these people get negative, press, whatnot, but they still keep them in the air. I just don't get that. So they got to figure something out, down the line. I don't mind the ABC coverage, but figure something out. Bob Myers, and somebody are saying like Bob Myers get more time to shine. I watched that second round, D-Lock. When he's giving time to shine, There's another dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, ESPN got to figure something out. They really do. About their personalities and stuff like that. Because things ain't looking too great, right? I mean, things ain't looking good for them on their inside of things and all that stuff. But I'll let you have the last word.
I mean, I think you can see with Stephen A. and Myers, they kept going back and forth, and it just, like I said, even with Myers talking about OKC was celebrating their championship, he would talk about it's not Oakland. Like, dude, we hear that, you know what I'm saying? But right now, it's OKC time. You know what I mean? So it's just like, at this point, and I get it, he's standing up for his team, but at this point, we know OKC is the champs. Simple as that. So the coverage could have been a hell of a lot better. I think what's been working for the NFL has been working for a long time. That's just how they've been going. They get that attention. But maybe what can change the dynamic of them seeing them is when the NBA draft is. Because hell, the NBA finals just happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we just fresh off of that. Let's just celebrate that for a while. You know what I mean? And then talk about combines in NBA draft as the NFL do. You know what I mean? NFL has their season. And then they use that NFL draft to prepare you for the next season. When you see guys get drafted, like, hell, you see that the Titans got Cam Ward. He was super excited for the next season, right? And it's coming around. And then right after the NFL draft is what? The schedule drop. So I think for the NBA, they kind of can do something similar, where you just let the season go out and just let's talk about literally OKC winning championship, SGA being the MVP, how LeBron played. We could talk about the opt-in, the opt-out, stuff like that, and then talk about the draft a little bit later, heading on to the season. So, now granted, it's a longer season in the NFL, but I think that could help the NBA because at the same time, hell, we wanted to just celebrate the fact that the OKC just won the NBA championship. We already talked about next year in a week. So, but again, like you said, Steve don't have to get on everything. It just kind of seems like it's a little bit all over the place. It just has to have a better setup, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot to work on for ESPN, and I think there's too many talented people. They hire talented people, but they just keep the same people in rotation. So they just got to figure out something. But I mean, we'll see how that goes. But this has been our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in with us 2+ hours going over the first round of the NBA draft. I know we sprinkled in the other news going around the league. Colin Sexton getting traded, Julius Randle getting his contract extension, Nas Reed getting his contract extension. We didn't mention Jarabi Smith, but he got a contract extension for the Houston Rockets. So we kind of spread that in within the draft coverage. But D-Lock, how can people find you on social media?
Guys, find me at Black-813. D-Lock813 on Instagram. Like I said, I've kind of been retweeting a few things. Super excited about Desmond Bane being in Orlando Magic uniform. Also, I just want to see where that goes. Let them know they can find you on the show's page.
You find the show's page at Fast Break ISR. That's Fast Break IESR. Do follow me on Twitter /Spawn4288. That's Spawn4288. Do follow iSports Radio on all your social media feeds: X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and I think TikTok as well. Do follow iSportsRadio.com for all your social media news and feeds, all that stuff. Football season around the corner, so do look out for the 3-ounce series coming out next month to do our training camp preview series as well. Also, next week is the Monday. This coming Monday, tomorrow, is the start of free agency. We'll see how that goes. How it's been pretty dry for the past couple of years, so we'll see how about goes, and we'll talk about that next week, and we'll see how things go and all that good stuff. But if it's dry, we may not be on. We'll see how it goes and all that good stuff. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, next week we'll talk to y'all next about the free agency we'll definitely get into the Lakers sale, hopefully next week, depending on how free agency goes. So we'll talk all that stuff then. But have a great night. We'll talk to y'all next week. Peace.